Welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Chop Shop, brought to you by Buckabomb Entertainment and brought to you by Blue Tune Network. Introducing first, hailing from Luton, United Kingdom, your host, the one Walshmeister, Luke Anthony Walsh. Bada bing, bada boom, and it is my honor to be given the reins of hosting duties this week on the Chop Shop. Introducing next, the mean queen of North Syracuse, New York. She is Sarah Visick. And finally, from Florida, WWE Dynamite's biggest fan, Orlando Ortega. How are we? Welcome to this week's Chop Shop.
Oh, that was a nice introduction. Thanks.
Yes, definitely great.
It's like I do this for a living. It's like I'm used to doing this for years. So we are going to dive straight into this week's WWE news as ever. Please like, subscribe, link to the channel, and feel free to comment, and we might read them out on next week's episode on all things WWE. A big week for WWE, which we're going to come on to. But first and foremost, I'm going to start with the sad news of losing somebody that was quite simply wonderful. Paul Orndorff passing away over the weekend. A man that was simply underrated in the golden era of wrestling. Sarah, let's start with you. Your thoughts on the passing of simply Mr. Wonderful.
It's sad news. We kind of saw it coming. His son releasing video a couple weeks ago. Just didn't look like he was in good shape. But, even though it's coming, it's still sad news. And we wish well to the family of Paul Orndorff.
Absolutely. And I guess, Orlando, you'll agree with me when you say this. When you go back to March 31st, 1985, 37 years ago of WrestleMania history boils down to that first main event that Mr. Wonderful was part of. And you go back and watch it now, and, considering the way they built it, for what it was at the time, it was extraordinary.
Yeah, I didn't watch wrestling at that time, but I did watch that match, and there was magic in the air for that match, for that tag team match as the main event. So Paul Orndorff, that's how you say it, right? Paul Orndorff?
Paul Orndorff.
Orndorff.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because, there was always a weird thing that they discussed about how to say his last name. I remember reading somewhere, but he was very much important for the history of wrestling, not only Hulk Hogan, but him and, Roddy Piper and Mr. T, so they were very important for the history books. So rest in peace. Hopefully his family is, hopefully they're okay now. But I understand when you lose a loved one, it's very hard.
Absolutely. And of course, I think there's a story that goes in the history books that it was 1986. He went on that famous one-on-one run against Hogan. This is obviously pre-Andre. And the way that was built across the country in house shows and across syndicated TV, it's almost a forgotten rivalry. Like, people talk about all the time about Hogan against Macho Man, obviously the Mega Powers. They talk about the Ultimate Warrior in 1990, but they just don't talk about Hulk Hogan against Mr. Wonderful, who at the time, pre-Luger, what was to come just 5-6 years later on down the timeline. That was the future of the company. It was either going to be Hogan or it was going to be Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because they always bring up the other rivalries for like Hulk Hogan. It's always like Iron Sheik or Andre the Giant or Roddy Piper, but I think he's very underrated when it comes to the rivalry,
Well, of course, he was inducted in that class of 2005 at the WWE Hall of Fame, where it was very much the Hulk Hogan show, inducted in the same class as the Iron Sheik, Roddy Piper. It's very much the annals of history, but it's very sad to lose quite simply one of the best. Yeah. Paul Orndorff, may rest in peace. But from one passing to a more positive passing, as we record this now, the Thunderdome era is over. 3 cheers to that. At last, we are getting fans back in WWE television. Hallelujah.
Ooh, they're not going to edit all the boos and the cheers this time.
This isn't
I guess this is a cliche first question. I'm going to send it to Orlando first. What's been your highlights of the Thunderdome era?
I would have to say, somebody brought it up in another podcast where they talk about like the intimate moments where you could like hear from the contract signings. You know, they don't really need mics and stuff, so that's really clever. And also, you can hear them kind of conversate, like when what was it from NXT UK when it was Walter versus Ilya Dragunov. You could hear them like kind of talk bad mouthing each other, and then you could hear those chops. It made it that match much better. I was like, oh, like it could have been not
Walter,
done.
my Walter.
Yeah, like you couldn't do it with like fans there because then you wouldn't hear it really well. I mean, like they would have probably been like gaspy, like, oh, like, that would have been nice to hear, but I just felt like because of the whole like Thunderdome and stuff, like or the pandemic era, we had some like interesting moments intimate moments where you could hear people talk in the ring and stuff. So
Are you trying to say
Walter
you
will
want to
be
hear Walter's
WWE champion.
chops?
That is a guarantee.
yes, I want to hear his chops because I heard that his chops are brutal. That one chop I heard, or like when he did that to what's his name, Zack Sabre Jr. It was like it almost killed him.
Brutal is putting it like kindergarten. It's deadly. He will kill somebody someday with those chops. And go back and watch Walter against Pete Dunne, NXT Takeover New York when he won the title. Oh, it's good. He's a murderer. I love him. Sarah, what's been your highlights?
I did get into Thunderdome once for one of the pay-per-views. It was a neat experience, something different. I think it goes to show you that maybe they can figure out ways in the future on how to bring fans into events where many may not be able to attend. Get my words out there. I think the next step may be kind of like an augmented reality, maybe kind of fan seating. Maybe we'll see, the stadium. Okay, you can buy a ticket to get into the stadium. You put on your virtual reality headset, and it's like you're in the stadium. Maybe that's the next step we get at some point.
Well, I want to sort of pause it there for a moment because I think there is a discussion around obviously what you can and can't do with cinematic matches going forward to having fans back in, and certainly there's 3 characters we can talk to about that. But let's jump straight into the news. Let's talk straight away about quite possibly the other big news of the weekend. Bayley is now out injured for 9 months. A woman who has dominated the Thunderdome era, who has been simply superb across the whole women's division in the WWE. And of all the times that she gets pulled up, she pulls up a week before she go back in front of her fans and be booed to hell. Horrific timing.
And mind you, this is if she would have been at the pay-per-view, it would have been a 2-year dominance. Because remember, she was like on top since that first time that she won the Money in the Bank briefcase until now. Like she was like the talk of like SmackDown. So
yeah, just a week shy.
Just a week shy, yeah. Just a week shy of 2 years.
And it's just sad, especially a little bit later we're going to talk about Bianca Belair and against Sasha Banks, but of course Sasha against Bayley was 2020 in a nutshell. It was just the will they won't they storyline that kept us watching week after week, and then that stellar Hell in a Cell match was quite possibly, and I just said about the Thunderdome era, one of the best matches across the 12 months period.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that she just did a routine kind of like drill or like, to get herself back into ring shape to go back on the road. And then, she gets an injury. It's just unfortunate,
It is definitely unfortunate. And I guess we can start to look ahead to this Friday on SmackDown and sort of what will be happening. And obviously, one name that's always been in the mix ever since WWE announced that they were coming back in front of live fans has been the man who started off on SmackDown 19 years ago, Mr. John Cena. Now, his availability has been speculated on a lot, especially by Fightful.com this week, producing 2 reports, the first of which said he would be out filming in August. The second of which contradicts that and said he'll be available for SummerSlam, and that is now penciled in so that he'll be now facing Roman Reigns, should he win on Sunday, for the Universal title. What's our take, Sarah? We've sort of talked before I think, on and off the podcast about what John Cena has been saying during the Fast and Furious 9 press tour. But where does John Cena now stand, especially as fans begin to come back? Is he becoming an Undertaker spot? Is he somebody that is going to be used to draw in fans immediately, or do you think this is the time for him to be brought back?
I know I've heard him express interest in wanting to return to the ring. He's never come right out and said he wants to do it again full time. I can't imagine him doing it again full time, especially with so many movie commitments in the future. But yeah, apparently this one is shooting. The next one's called Argyle. It's going to be starting in Europe right after SummerSlam. So, I mean, if we do see SummerSlam, I think we kind of know. Well, I guess he's not winning the title.
Well, I guess a little bit. We will talk about Money in the Bank and sort of get some rough predictions for what is going to happen. But irrespective of the result, we could either get Roman Reigns against John Cena, or, and I'm going to say this quietly first, John Cena versus Edge. One more time. Could you imagine? Can you imagine? Please. Like, I can't think of a bigger match.
I'm gonna say no to both of those. Sorry. Sorry. Because how they're building Roman, because it seems like he's gonna take out a lot of the bigger names. Like, first is gonna be John Cena. Well, first is gonna be Edge this Sunday at the pay-per-view. So then it's gonna be John Cena. I don't know if maybe they want to try to do like a 2-month or 3-month feud with him, but we'll see. Then I think the trajectory that Roman is going to is The Rock, because how it's looking like it's probably going to be The Rock. Like, I can't see anybody else. I mean, even Roman said it. Nobody can touch him, Like, honestly, like, I don't know who honestly can take the belt from him right now. I mean, they have to start building somebody for the next 6 months to see if they can take the belt from him. But
then where'd you pull that trigger? Because obviously, like, Roman Reigns is quickly coming up to 1 calendar year since he took over that title at Payback straight after SummerSlam, when he nicked it off Braun Strowman and The Fiend. So where does Rock fit in the timeline from, say he faces Cena at SummerSlam, where does he fit in the timeline from SummerSlam all the way through to WrestleMania next April in Dallas? Where'd you pull that trigger?
they have to do it. If they want Survivor Series to be big, then they need to do it in Survivor Series. That would be the 25th anniversary of The Rock's debut, which that would be a smart move for WWE, but it's WWE, I mean, also you got to remember The Rock is freaking busy. Like, you can't even get any time off with that man. And also remember, when he last went to WWE, he got injured, and then that affected a lot of his movies. So that's
rewind 2 episodes. We were literally just talking about The Rock's availability in the ring. Sarah, I want to come in and take your take on this. What could you? What if you had the pencil? What would you draw?
I think you see, Team Roman Reigns try to maybe put a team together for Survivor Series. Although you're just going to have the champion versus champion. So he tries to have, the Usos recruit The Rock for, the 5-man Survivor Series team, but he doesn't participate. Maybe he shows up. Roman and Rock have some sort of confrontation, which plants the seeds for a match at WrestleMania.
okay.
That's interesting. Certainly how crowds will take to Jimmy Uso will be a massive litmus paper moment on SmackDown. That's certainly for sure. But I think between this SmackDown coming up and next Friday, don't forget, in Miami, in Florida, we will get a rerun of that famous 2001 moment. I've already done the meme pre-prepared. That simulcast at Rolling Loud in Miami is going to be a moment where WWE is going to give their content back over to the fans. Whether they like it or not, they're going to boo or they're going to cheer. It's very much the biggest test in front of a live audience whether their content will work or not. And it's going to be compelling viewing. That is certainly for sure. Let's go straight back to Monday Night Raw and the news that we've come out so far. News that have come out overnight about Raw is that the proposed draft that we were talking about in a previous podcast that was going to be set after SummerSlam is now being pushed to October for another season premiere of Monday Night Raw. Sarah, what's your take on this? Because obviously with the draft, it is going to shuffle up the roster, which has been badly needed, of course, during this period. Possibly talks of Drew McIntyre going to SmackDown because you can't face Bobby Lashley, technically. Where again, is this smart to push it back, or do you think it needs to be sooner?
I get why they're doing it. They want to do something good for, the new season. And if I'm not mistaken, this is typically when they do the draft anyways, is sometime in October. I thought it was kind of strange that they were going to do it early, for August, but figuring they're going back on tour in August, that's why they pushed it up. Maybe they're pushing some storylines back that way, so this why they're moving the draft. But I see no issue with it.
What's your take, Orlando? Because surely you're talking about the touring schedule. I think it's believed, as we learned last week, they come to the UK in September. So surely the idea would be if they could shuffle the pack late August, straight after SummerSlam, it would make the tour dates in September and October more compelling to go and see.
Yeah, I don't know what's the reason. I don't know because they always do this because I think it's because it's always a season premiere for each show. Like it's always in October. So I'm thinking it's because of that. So it's like some sort of compelling little storyline. Oh, who's gonna go to this show? Who's going to that show? But honestly, I think crowds has been asking for a shakeup because they just feel like the fans they're just getting tired of almost like the same matches. They want fresher matches. So maybe that's why maybe they pushed it back just to see how they could do within a month before SummerSlam. I think I don't know. It's just I don't know, honestly. I don't know.
Question for the both of you: would you bring back general managers and have a Raw and SmackDown set up as we've been used to before?
Yes, but they don't have to be like characters. Like they have to be like a face or a heel. They could just be like an authority figure where they just say like what matches are happening. And if they need to suspend somebody, they could suspend somebody, and then they don't have to get beat up for it from the wrestlers, in my opinion. What was that one that was?
I guess, as we saw 5 years ago, seeing Mick Foley, seeing Daniel Bryan in charge of Raw and SmackDown, that was like a fresh wave. It doesn't feel like 5 years ago, but the way that they changed the atmosphere around Raw and SmackDown, bringing up Finn Balor, we'll talk about the call-ups in just a second, but surely you're having somebody as a face. Yes, we've seen Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. We'll come back to her in a little bit as well. Surely, Sarah, by having a general manager and adding that little element of competition would be, again, interesting viewing and add more to the fans as well.
I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting, when they had, Daniel Bryan, they had like little competitions. But kind of going for just have somebody make matches, suspend people needed. That's kind of like how Adam Pearce started out. That was kind of fresh and different too.
It's certainly intriguing how they're going to play it out, and I just led up to it. The NXT call-ups are going to be there, and as we've discussed in previous weeks, and we're certainly going to mention in weeks to come until the draft, is who do you bring up? Well, we saw on Friday Night SmackDown, possibly due to the result of Bayley's injury, Shotzi Blackheart and Just Knox, not Tegan, Just Knox, came up in tag action. First signs of who could be coming up. Obviously, we've seen that they've had tryouts as well, and on main event as well, of course, Bronson Reed being possibly the next person to be coming up. What was your evaluation of their debut on SmackDown?
I thought it was pretty good.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know. Sorry.
I thought it was pretty good. Rumor I've heard is that, it's permanent, wasn't a one-off. And then, of course, we see the vignette for Toni Storm, who will be making her SmackDown debut pretty soon as well. She's the one I'm most excited about to be debuting.
Orlando, what's your take on it?
I was fine with it. I mean, I don't know if Tegan was not going to get injured, that if she was going to be tagging with Shotzi for the titles in NXT, because they've been together for when they were even called up as well last year in 2020. So remember, they faced like Bailey and Sasha too. So I mean, I'm thinking that the producers and backstage people really like them both together. So maybe that's probably why they.
What they have with Shotzi Blackheart is a true unique product. I mean, her tank, for example, is merch full stop. You know, you can sell that to kids of this punk ass girl with her little tank. Like, she sells Halloween each and every year, arguably better than the Undertaker did back in the day. You know, like it was she's got that cool element to her where tag run or singles push, they've got a real talent on their cards. So if they can use and utilize her, they can really get money out of it.
Oh, no. Shotzi, I'm thinking they're first going to put her in a team. Then they're going to break them away. And then she's going to have a singles one, which she's going to be she's going to be up there with like Riddle and stuff, where she's going to be very popular with people. So I'm thinking that she will be the breakout star next year.
Yeah, it's going to be one to see. And as we discussed in previous weeks, revitalize the women's tag titles. Remember what they used to look like. I mean, it's desperate, but they're going to need to do it. And you know what Tony Storm could possibly bring is to come. But we'll wait and see in the upcoming weeks as the touring schedule gets back underway. Who comes up, who comes through, who sticks around. Certainly, we'll be talking about it on this very podcast. Now, from one moment in SmackDown to a moment on Monday Night Raw that just made every smart wrestling fan smile. Kelsey Heather, she pulled a Lex Luger. She pulled a ravishing Rick Rude. She was on WWE and AEW on the same night. Oh, it made me smile when I woke up to see that.
It was funny because when I was at AEW for the first show and I saw the blonde, I was like, why does she look familiar to me? And then I was like, and then when somebody put it up, I was like, oh, I was like, that's what it is. I was like, okay. But
let's not forget, Alex Gracia did this last year as well. She appeared on AEW and NWA.
That's not the same. That's not the same,
I
Sarah.
know.
It's not the same, especially where she played WWE at their own game. They taped Monday Night Raw last Tuesday in the Thunderdome, and there she was on Dark last night. I mean, she's the first woman to do it, I think.
Well, okay, but here's the thing, though. Rick Rude, he was contracted with WWF at that time. Then he decided to leave, and then he got himself a new contract with WCW. So technically, this does not really count with her.
Oh, come on.
No. If they want to make it be like, oh, WWE, WCW, who's going to be the first? No, it has to be in that type of context, okay?
Dream Orlando, come on, let a man have his moments. You know, it was just great television history. You know, come on, let me have it.
I'll allow it this time, but I'm just saying. Historians will probably be like, no, you know.
From one moment to another, Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair won at the ESPYs for best WWE moment. I mean, it was a good match, but WWE just patting themselves back on the back. You know, it's a bit of a false award.
I mean, it was a good moment. I mean, come on now. It's just like, come on now. To have two black women be in the main event of night one of a show, and you know, and they created magic. Honestly, you know, I mean, if they would have had maybe 5 more minutes, I think they would have probably had like match of the year kind of candidate. You know, but like to me, it was a great moment for them. Honestly,
I think the whole show from start to finish on night one was just deserves an award in itself. The half-an-hour Thunder break, Samoa Joe in a poncho will always stay in our memories for the rest of time.
Yes, of course, everybody.
I need that in a frame on my wall. It just was, so magnifique. And just again, we talk about live fans coming back on a regular basis, but seeing 25,000 fans in Tampa, Florida, at the Raymond James was a night we'll never forget. And the fact that it did crown Bianca Belair as the champion. And my goodness, did you see the welts on Sasha Banks of the hair of Bianca? Oh my goody! Oh, what a moment!
Yep.
And maybe it is thoroughly deserved, even though it's sort of giving it to themselves. But more like at the end of the day, it was a better main event than Charlotte Flair against Becky Lynch against Ronda Rousey. At least they know how to pin themselves on the mat.
Damn, the shade.
Just gonna let that sit. And remind everyone it was 5:30 in the morning in UK time when that main event went down. I'm just going to let that sit for a second. That was, yeah.
Let's just, you have to tell them, be like, hey, give us a WrestleMania or give us a pay-per-view. Come on.
Yeah. From one moment to a possible return coming back into the fold, and that is somebody that's been on screen for the vast majority of this year, and somebody who's technically authority, not authority, is authority. Sonya Deville could be returning to in-ring action. Fuffle Select has reported that there's been a significant push to have Sonya Deville involved in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Don't be surprised if she snakes her way in, possibly in the pre-show or something happens. Of course, she's been announcing who is going in on the briefcase match on Twitter. Hello, Natty Neidhart. Sonya Deville back in the ring. I don't believe she's fought since the loser leaves WWE match. I think that was last SummerSlam. Sarah, is this a good idea?
I think it's kind of sneaky. She's been playing a position of, overpowering stuff, making decisions. There's still one position left on the SmackDown roster for an entrant.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this Friday, maybe you could see her say, you know what, I'll fill it. There's nobody else worthy of it.
Yeah. And also, to me, it's just they haven't done the banter between Sonya and Adam Pearce, where they're against each other. So maybe this could be another little feather into their rivalry in a sense, where she adds herself into the match, because I think they're saving Becky for Raw. Sasha Banks she's probably come back this Friday because they're probably going to start setting up for SummerSlam for them too, Bianca and Sasha for SummerSlam. So that's probably what's going to happen. So there's a lot of possibilities now that fans are here and now that some of the wrestlers are ready to return. So
she was taken off the road last year, obviously because of the stalker case that both her and Mandy Rose went through. Because originally that match was meant to be lose their hair. I mean, she's great in the ring, of course. Rose and Deville, Fire and Desire were a fantastic women's tag team. Possible reunion? Just forgetting that Otis was a thing?
I don't think so because she's actually working well with what's her name? Dana Brooke. Yeah. So I don't see them. I don't think they want to go backwards. It would be nice for them to return with each other, but I don't see it, honestly.
Especially if they're on separate shows. They have to draft
them back to the same show. Anything.
But she's an authority figure. She's an authority figure, remember, Sarah, so she could appear in any show she wants.
Exactly.
She could win the briefcase and just start showing up on Raw.
Exactly. It's like she can announce who's in the match on Twitter and just think she can get away with it. Hello, Natty. It remains to be seen what happens, and if she's brought back in, it smells of heelness, doesn't it? So, if she, for all intents and purposes, she could be a female Brock Lesnar and just come and run in and grab the briefcase and the story plays out from there, so it depends what is booked. That is certainly for sure. Before we come on to predictions of Money in the Bank and we go through the card quickly, Becky Lynch, the baddest woman in the planet, the man herself, of course, getting ever closer to an in-ring return and compelling shape. Bearing in mind she gave birth earlier this year. She gave praise to one Tyson Kidd as possibly one of the best producers in the business. I mean, Tyson Kidd, again, great wrestler back in the day, back in the WWE Universe days of the early 2010s. And you know, it's not often you get WWE wrestlers recognizing producers' work, and it was great to see. Sarah, what's your take on it?
Yeah, he does work with the women a lot, and a lot of the women have nothing but good things to say about him. Natalia was on a podcast recently, I forget which one it was. It might have been last year, actually. She talked about how TJ actually becomes more proud and more happy with the work when he puts on a good match as a producer, helps the women do that, than when he had a good match himself. So it's good to see, he's, so passionate about it and takes great pride in work, and, the women love working with him. So, it's great for the business.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that maybe he had a lot of conversations with Fit Finley, because like all the women back in that time, Fit Finley everybody talks about him, what he has done for the women. So so for me it's just like I can see why, because a lot of the women are now saying how much TJ has helped. Even the girls that gotten released, like the Iconics did an interview about TJ. Who else was it? I think it was Chelsea Green as well, said something nice about TJ. So yeah, so a lot of the women like currently now are praising him. Even TJ is fighting for the girls to do certain segments to make sure that it is still played out,
Yeah,
like he's fighting for them to make sure that it is done. So I mean, that has to be something right there too.
I mean, like even sort of talking about the Iconics and seeing Peyton Royce and
Billy Kay.
yeah, seeing the Iconics online, and they seem so happy to be outside of their contracts at the moment that it's such a joy to see. Even seeing interviews with Killian Dane over on Wrestle Talk, and the way he's talked about life outside of WWE, it's certainly freeing. But of course, it does also highlight the big issue about the budget cuts that the WWE have having to do. And obviously, now that they're going back on the road, they have that chance to bring that money back in. Is that what are you gonna do? Obviously, Meltzer and Alvarez on Wrestling Observer saying that it's WWE obviously didn't want to have fine women every city that can travel for Bobby Lashley's ladies, for example. So and obviously one of them happened to be on AEW at the same time.
But you don't know how much they're paying them. That's the thing. That's the thing. It's just like you don't know how much they're getting paid. It could be like $100, $500. I mean, who could live off of $500 a day? Honestly.
500 a day. I can live off that.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the math in my head. That's about 300 sterling. Yeah, I could live a 300 a day. 300 would be a comfortable day in the United Kingdom. That is certainly for sure.
But also, like you have to also think it's just like what the prices are for some of these people that they let go. Some of them they probably resign and they got like probably more figures than before. So that's just me. Like, and also for as far as from like the freedom like thing, like I get them. Like they don't like to be restricted on certain things like moves or storylines and stuff like that. But it's WWE's choice that they want to do that. They don't want them to go too crazy or something. So it's their decision. So,
well, I think at the end of the day, it's and I was listening to a podcast this afternoon. Is that WWE is a money making machine, and even when you look at the Jinder Mahal Drew McIntyre storyline, which makes my 3MB fan cry and cry and cry inside of me. That they're bringing out a new toy range with the breaking motorcycle or cycling vehicle, they've called it on the website, and the fact that they are pushing out so much on the merchandise and how they are really pushing this quite simply absurd story to sell the merch is just a madness that WWE are doing. Bearing in mind they took pre-orders on an Aleister Black t-shirt as well. I mean, like, what sort of business plan is that, really, isn't it? And where's it going to stop? What the buck has to stop somewhere.
Depending on like if they lose like the American market and they only have international market, that's the only other way. Because technically the American market is leaving, honestly, from WWE and going to like all the indie shows that we make around here. So it's now depending on like the international market, you know, like England, India, you know, Asia, you know, because of course, you know, India is becoming a big market for them now, as well as Asia. So, and now they're just
We're
starting to
getting
make,
NXT India at some point, aren't we? So, you know, and
yeah, of
obviously we've
course.
got India showcase as well back in January. So, you know, that they are, it's, yeah. Anyone with a business or economics sort of education, like, can look at WWE and think, just what is going on. But it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen from Friday onwards, when fans are paying their money, paying their tickets to go and see them. And, you know, it's either going to be, we're going to be either sat here next week and praising a complete new wave of WWE, or we're going to be looking back and thinking, what fans, we're back to the Thunderdome content. Finally, I have to come into Money in the Bank. In the bank, money in the bank. Sorry, I had to get it out of my system. Buckabon will be doing a full Money in the Bank predictions over the weekend. But Sarah, Orlando, whilst I have you here, I have to talk about the two big matches. First, the men's one. Ricochet, John Morrison, Riddle, Drew McIntyre, Big E, Kevin Owens, Kinsuke Nakamura, Seth Rollins. Who is winning the briefcase? Sarah, I'm going to come to you first.
Who I want to win, I think, is Big E. And they talk about giving him a big push. The way I can see the storyline going, if Big E wins it, maybe, you know, we see a continuation of her few weeks of Lashley just trying to up and destroy Kofi and Xavier, when who comes in to save the day? Big E. Can you get a New Day reunion?
Well, didn't we say this back in January, Sarah? Didn't we say Big E was going to win the Royal Rumble? Then he won the IC title on Christmas Day. The argument with Big E is that he's so close but no cigar. So if this is going to be the moment, it's going to be the worst moment, considering how we've just spoken about how the SummerSlam main events of John Cena versus Reigns or Edge, and as we said last week, possibly Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley, or even Brock Lesnar, should he wish to show up with his fancy beard. It's to give him the briefcase at this point, where booking is so tight and almost sealed in for at least 3 or 4 months, is a bad idea.
I mean, they got a year to cash it in. I mean, they gave it to Otis last year. And what they do with it?
Yeah, and that was a terrible idea. That was a terrible idea.
How the New Day say it. Nothing.
Come on.
It did make a good lunch, though.
Yeah.
Orlando, I'm going to come to you for your predictions. Who's going to come away with the briefcase?
Who I would like to win.
And bear in mind, you can change your mind between now and the full predictions at the weekend.
Yeah. I would like it maybe Seth, because like at least there's a bit of a story there, because like it could go either way. Like maybe it'll go bring Seth back to being a babyface, you know? And then like, you know, him versus Roman, because they have to do something with Roman, because I don't know who else is gonna be facing Roman throughout the winter time. Because who can you see until The Rock comes and like helps out for WrestleMania? But
Orlando,
you make that face.
Orlando,
he
took one eye of Rey Mysterio. He's going to take both of mine. I'm fed up with Seth Rollins. He's boring.
No, he could be appealing again. Come on now. That's the kid, give him a motivation, you know? So, I mean, like, and plus, like, you never know. Maybe Edge wins the title, and then it'll be Edge versus Seth Rollins, and then he'll still be a heel there, you know? And then they could feud, and then the Wise can get involved. You know, we could have that Beth versus Becky match.
You know, WWE does like to recycle old gimmicks once in a while. Why not bring back the "I've got kids" gimmick for Seth Rollins?
Can I
I mean, they
kick you for
could. I mean, they could.
that is like genuinely that is awful. That is awful. Nobody wants to see that. But
No,
like,
no.
like genuinely, what can you do with Seth Rollins that'll make it interesting? Like he's just been meh, meh. Like it's just I can't like I can't. I just can't. I can't think of anything that
I
will
said,
say.
I said who I would like. I know it's not going to be. It's the question is who would you like? Okay, I said my fantasy booking right here. There's two ways it could go. It could be Roman versus Seth, where Seth is the babyface, or it could be Seth versus Edge, where he's still the heel. And then, of course, they have that history back in 2015 when he first had the briefcase, if you remember.
I mean, like any argument would still say either Nakamura or Ricochet. If WWE remember what's good wrestling, what used to look like. Do you remember Prince Puma? I do. I remember Wrestle Kingdom 9 as well. But you know, it's I don't know. It's the sad reality of what story will fit the best. And I think between now and obviously when we have our predictions on Saturday, which I'll definitely be involved with, is you know what story can they write to complement the talent of wrestling and give us a good title match? And ultimately it's about what goes down with the fans. It'll be amazing to see. And of course on the women's side, from one interesting match to another, Asuka, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Nikki Ash, Liv Morgan, Zelina Vega, Natalia, and one spot open for the women's Money in the Bank. Of course, Asuka won this last year when Becky announced her pregnancy. It's where can you go? I want to say Alexa Bliss is my hot favorite to win it, but what are they doing with Alexa Bliss? I spoke a little bit earlier about what they can and can't do with cinematic matches, but Alexa Bliss, I think, is going to suffer in being in front of live fans because they can't do the spookums.
Well, I mean, yeah, I could see that. I mean, I could see why there's going to be an issue with Alexa Bliss in front of fans, but who I would like for it to win on the women's side, I would like it to be Naomi because I think it's time they give Naomi a little bit of a chance, turn her heel, bring her with the family, may her have her feud with Bianca Belair. That would be a refresher, you know. And then, you know, she could cut her promo being all jealous between her and Sasha. You know, like she's the first actual real black woman. You know, they should have done that with her, blah, blah, blah. You know, they could go like with that type of direction, you know?
Do you remember Feel the Glow? Do you remember when she won it at WrestleMania 33 in good old Orlando? I want that Naomi back, you know? Knee sliding down the ramp. Yes.
I want 2014, 2015 heel Naomi. She needs to come back as that heel again. I mean, she was a really badass woman when she was that heel. So I want her to be that again.
Sarah, who have you got to be Miss Money in the Bank 2021?
At this point, I don't really have an odds-on favorite. I don't really know who's going to win. I don't really know who makes the most sense to win. Who I want to win, I want to see Natalia win. She's done so much for the business, helping train the newer up-and-coming women just to be better for themselves. I think Natalia deserves one last good run. And
she's even training the new talent. There's a few that appeared on AEW too. You know, so she's actually putting her hands on the wrestling business as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen what happens, and obviously who gets that final spot could be decided when we make our official predictions here on Buckaball Entertainment over the weekend. Stay tuned for our Money in the Bank predictions content. But I guess we're going to leave it there for the Chop Shop this week. I have been Luke Antipols. That has been the main queen, Sarah Visick, and that has been Orlando Ortega. We'll see you next week for the Chop Shop.
Have a good night, everyone.